Hello, I'm Tara Ruckman.
And I'm Stephanie Howe, and we are Control the Chaos EDU. Are you burnout? Are you feeling frustrated or overwhelmed?
Or maybe it's the opposite, and you're a go-getter and want to level up. Then it's time to dive in with real talk and solution-focused conversations.
Hello, and welcome to today's Control the Chaos conversation. And we are going to be talking about a keynote that I recently heard at the Learn 21 conference that was very inspirational, and it was the message that I needed to hear. So I feel like a lot of other people also need to hear this message from the Savannah Bananas. And when I walked in, I had no idea who the Savannah Bananas were, but now I'm a huge fan. I walked in and this guy had banana pants on, and I was like, I think I'm gonna like him, right? Like he's got the outfit on, and what's really funny is one of our teachers right now, she's like really into kind of getting into the theme of her lessons, so like decorating her room a little bit. And she's been wearing like an NFL shirt for draft day when it comes to regions. She has a tent set up for this one activity that she's done, and she like dressed as a camper. And it made me think of her right when I walked in the room. And I was like, real quickly, she is getting her students engaged just by the way that she is dressed. And so I see this guy in these banana pants. They're green and they had yellow bananas all over them. And that already got my attention. And then when he started talking, I was just like, I needed to hear this. And yes, it comes from a business background, but sometimes I think hearing things from a different perspective can really help. Now, Tara was not at this conference, so she gets to hear a little bit more about it and then add some of her ideas as she's hearing it for the first time. So I think this is going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, and I love too when you just said it's a business model, because I listen to a lot of business podcasts now. I started listening to business podcasts over the summer and probably some in the spring. And there's so many things that you can relate. I mean, between the two things when you talk about like just the care of your employees, right? Like how you treat, the self-care that you do, all the work that we do. We're not a business, but we are in a business of teaching, right? So we can relate some of those factors. So I love that they did that.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with kind of their story. So the president was speaking at the Learn 21 conference, and he was talking about how they were in a town. Baseball was failing. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to do the same thing, and they were hoping for different results. And I immediately thought of education there. There's times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep trying the same old strategy, hoping that this student's going to be engaged or hoping this is going to happen, hoping for different results, even though I haven't changed that strategy. Have you ever done that, Tara, where you might feel like I'm going to keep doing this thing and hoping for something different, right?
Yeah. Don't we all do that? I mean, praying for different results is usually not going to make the difference. Or we just have to find that consistency of like we implement it with fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sometimes we implement it, but it's not quite what it's like half butt.
Yeah.
I won't say the word because we're not supposed to, because we're a clean version. But when you think about it, you implement something that's halfway and then you're like, it didn't work. So you go on to something else. So there's a whole lot of versions of that, right?
Yeah. And so the Savannah Bananas were not selling tickets, and they immediately thought they had to do something different. So again, maybe you need to start implementing something 100% instead of maybe 20%, or maybe you are implementing something at 100% and it's just not working. And so maybe that for you is trying something different like the Savannah Bananas did. So what they did is they went to their community and they asked for names. And so the public voted and suggested different names, and they all of a sudden came up with the Savannah Bananas. And if you have not heard of them, you need to pull up TikTok or YouTube, because their videos are really engaging. They have fun, and that was their goal. So that was their mission, was to make baseball fun, which was really different than other baseball teams, right? A lot of other teams want to win. They want like that winning season, where their goal was not to win. And they just wanted to have fun in their classroom. So when I think about that, they also thought, putting their fans first. And so when I think back to schools, our fans are our parents, our fans are our students. And so how do we make, if our goal is to make school fun, what do we need to do there, right? And so then they start with the end of mind. And I really loved this question, that they ask every single game or every single season. What do we want people to say when they leave this game? And I don't know about you, Tara, but when I thought about that question, I was thinking, what do I want people in my classroom to say about school this school year when they leave this year?
Yeah, and I think it's not just about school, it's about like you as a teacher. Like I had a really great year with Mrs. Ruckman, and I learned a lot from her, and I was really engaged. Or they could leave and say, Miss Ruckman was super boring. I fell asleep in her class, and I feel like I didn't learn a whole lot because I was always bored, right? Like those are two big differences of what kids walk away with from you, from your class, when you're what do you want kids to say about you? So that's the reverse engineer.
Yeah, and I think too, though, when you think with the end of mind, I mean, how many times do you do that? And then you get stuck in a rut of, we've got to learn this, we've got to do that, but that's not your end goal, right? Like, yeah, we want students to learn and we want them to do things, but if your main goal is you want to be remembered by your students for caring, for being energetic, you've got to put in that time throughout the year to do that. Even though you still got to fit in that curriculum and everything else. But I think when we look at it long term or backwards design of, okay, this is my end goal, every day you're going to treat it a little bit differently.
Yeah, if you think about what it is you want your kids to say about you when they walk out the classroom, then that can help you absolutely 100% design your lessons, right? Like if I say, I really want my kids to walk away from, and I'm not saying a learning intention. I'm not saying a standard, right? Like I want my kids to walk away. And we do that already with our learning intentions. But what feeling do you want to add to that? What emotion do you want to add to that? Because that is just as important. Like I want my kid to walk away with learning, you know, how to do multiplication. So do you want them to learn it and be excited about it? Do you want them to learn it and not just memorize it, but be able to break it down? So, like taking that learning intention, and I want kids to walk away with the love of multiplication. I want kids to walk away with excitement about moving towards division because they have done so well with multiplication. So, like adding that emotion into it beyond what the learning intention is, because we always have the learning intentions that are kind of set forth for us by our Ohio department or whatever, wherever, whoever creates your standards, right? That we get those learning intentions from. So it's that additional, like extra, yeah, it's extra, right? Like it's that extra what I really want, because in the end of the day, creating that learning experience is what is going to be what they remember. Because there's a lot of things I don't remember about high school history, and I can tell you It was probably because I wasn't really engaged in my high school history class. So if I wasn't engaged and it wasn't a learning experience for me, those learning intentions might not stick with me, right? It might be in that short term memory versus the long term memory that we're trying to get the students to comprehend and get to.
Yeah, and what I love that they said was their end goal was to have people say that this was the most fun that they've ever had at a baseball game, which I feel like, I mean, I enjoy baseball, but I don't like love, like, it's not fun, when you're watching the Savannah Bananas do flips and everything and they're on stilts. Um, so I was like, oh my gosh, that's a good idea to change and think with that end in mind, because then it changes every day when you go into class, how you respond to your students, um, and how you support them. And so because they worked with that end in mind, they began to get really popular, and they started to get sold out. And so they also had three different principles. So with their three principles, it was love people, so love their fans, and love their self, and then love people in their organization. And so I just thought that was simple to just think about those three things and how can you love, your students? How can you love yourself? Because I think sometimes as educators, we keep thinking, I need to get this done or I need to do this. But really, you need to relax on the weekend or you need to take something off your plate, and just say, not right now. Because that extra added pressure is, um, weighing you down and you're not able to love others. So I thought that was really important that they put in there love themselves, because I don't see a whole lot of businesses, um, wanting people to love themselves. They kind of want you to give your life over to the company sometimes. um,
And the next one is it love people in your organization.
mhm.
This is huge. And I think, creating that collaboration, creating like a team of people that you enjoy coming to work to see and working with every day, it's a motivator, right? So if you have people that you collaborate with, if you have people that you work well with, if you have people that you think like they're really a part of my team, um, then you're really going to enjoy coming to work more. You're going to put more effort in than if you don't. I mean, I remember my first year as a coach. Um, it was kind of a lonely position because I am district wide and I had one other person. There's two of us in my role, and that was my person, right? And she was amazing and she motivated me. She supported me as a first year coach. Um, but the more that I'm in the position and the more that I grow, and around uh, new people, building relationships, like the more I learn to love the people in the buildings and the more I want to be motivated to support and to help them. Whereas in year one of my position, it was kind of lonely. I mean, I was still motivated to come to work because I love what I do. But loving what you do is sometimes it's not all that you need, right? Loving what you do and loving that people that you work with can help motivate you every day.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they were talking about is we sometimes have to maybe step up or be the bigger person at first and go out of our way, even though it might feel uncomfortable, and just say thank you to somebody or get them a gift. And we'll talk a little bit about love languages. They call them, acts of appreciation, because they were like, love is a little weird in an organization, right? When you're going into, the five love languages, but they actually call it the five languages of appreciation, which I really liked. But it was all about loving their fans and loving those people. And again, sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone first and say something to somebody, do something for someone before they might respond back to you. So sometimes that's hard because you want to, you want to be loved, but sometimes when you're able to do that, you're able to love other people. But I also think that you have to love yourself and be in a good place um, in your own self before you can just love other people as well. So that's something that you need to take care of is your own well-being first, and then you're able to outpour that onto others. And so when he was talking about loving your fans, they also had an Andy Stanley quote where they were talking about do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. And they talked about this because they said it can feel overwhelming. Like, I have 30 some kids in this classroom right now, and I can't reach all of them. And what they reminded me of was to do something for one person, start small. And then you start to see that ripple effect over time where that one person reaches another person. And then they reach another person, or I reach this person one day, and then I do this for this person another day. So I think that's really important to start small and don't think you need to do everyone, even though you want to do everyone. But you've got to think about, okay, how am I going to reach this one student? How am I going to reach this one coworker? And start there. Even though you want to do it for everybody, think about what you can do for that one person.
And that can be daily, it could be weekly, like setting your goals that are appropriate for you. Like this week, I am really going to make the effort on this one person because change doesn't happen overnight, right? So making sure that you put in some reasonable goals for yourself. Like my goal is to reach this person and to support this person over the course of this week, or and in that time frame that you're supporting that that person, you're going to kind of have that trickle down effect. And your branches start spreading, right? Your leaves start growing. It's kind of like a tree. You start as this tree with all these empty branches that are way out there, and then as your tree grows and you hit the springtime, all your leaves start growing and they all blends together. So thinking of yourself in that effect, like if you once that one leaf starts to grow, the others start to grow around it until you have this full tree that's blooming in the springtime. And then, of course, the leaves all fall off and then you start all over again, right? Just like you are teaching a new class and you reach one and they start to grow and blossom and bloom. And again, you end up with this full tree by the end of all of it.
Yeah. And then what they did, kind of thinking small again at the beginning of them trying to get fans hooked, is they called and thanked people for buying a ticket. And so they would just call and just say, hey, thank you so much for buying a ticket. We're looking forward to seeing you at the game. People are starting, to feel heard. They're feeling seen. I don't know too many companies that call and thank me for buying different products. But when they did this, there was a 25-year-old, and he was an intern on the Savannah Bananas team. He called this guy, and the guy had no idea that his wife bought tickets for the game. And about 2 weeks before he called, his wife passed away. And this 25-year-old didn't know that. The guy was like, oh, my wife must have bought them like before she passed away. And then he explained kind of the situation that had happened. And this 25-year-old got off the phone and he went back to the team and just told them what had happened on this phone call. And again, we don't really know what is going on in everybody's life. And I think sometimes when we ask or when we start to thank them or find out more, you start to be able to relate with them as well. And so he went back to the team, and the team was like, do whatever you think. And I think that's kind of nice too as an organization, especially if you are maybe administrators, giving your staff that permission to say, you use your strengths and you figure it out, right? Like giving that delegation up and that control up to allow other people to step up and kind of think about what they would do or how they would respond in different situations can allow them to build some ownership and excitement in the organization. And so this 25-year-old called the dad back and he he said again, I really want you to come to this game. We've upgraded your tickets. So they were going to sit, upgraded seats and everything. And so the family came. It was a dad and then two kids. And what this 25-year-old did, and I don't remember being this caring at 25, I don't think, but he got the family, the dad, a shirt, and it had the Savannah Bananas, and then on the back was number 20. And that's how many years that this husband and wife were married for. So it had some meaning behind it. And then the kids were able to do all these like fun different activities throughout the game. And it was about making people feel remarkable. And so just hearing that story, again, it wasn't every single fan that they upgraded these seats for. They just upgraded these seats for that one family. And so you're focusing on that one student. And how can I focus on that one student where I am listening carefully and I'm responding? And I am able to see how can I make that person or that student feel remarkable today. And so I have a couple teachers that once a week they have a student. They all pull a different student. So there's like 3 kids because it's a 3-person team. And that week, the student doesn't know that they are that student, like the mystery student of the week. They're calling home about positive things that are happening. They might be treating that student a little bit more remarkable. And what they call it is the secret student. And again, they each pick a different student and they're just loving on that kid throughout the week to make that student feel remarkable. And again, it's starting small with just that one student. And then you're able to kind of build it up, build that culture throughout the year.
What are some of the things that they do for the students when they're in this process? Because I love the idea, because we oftentimes think of the mystery student as, I've seen classes where they pull a mystery student and see, are they following all the expectations? But I like this spin on the mystery student, that the mystery student is being pulled. They don't know. Do they ever tell them that they're the mystery student, or how does all of that work?
Yeah, they don't tell the student that they're the mystery student. Sometimes it's simple as, hey, can you take this letter to the office, and the student gets like a special job for the day. Sometimes it is sending an email home or calling home to the parents to talk about how great this student is. Other times it might be this student gets out of a different assignment or different activity that every other student gets to do, but it's just making that student feel special and seen in their classroom. And maybe it is an extra 5-minute check-in with that student. Hey, how's life going? Or really getting to know that student at a more personal level of, oh, I didn't know that about this kid, that they play baseball or they do this activity, because you're really intentionally getting to know that student a lot better throughout the week. And again, it's not like pulled and then checked to see if they followed a list. It's pulled at the beginning of the week. And that student could be awful all week, but they are still trying to find the good out of that student and giving some of that extra attention to them.
I love that so much, because that's all positive reinforcement, right?
Yeah. And
That
again,
is,
starting small.
yeah, I love that. The mystery student. So as coaches, we could do the mystery teachers. As admin, they could do the mystery teachers.
Yeah.
That would be, if we start spreading the mystery teacher.
Yeah. And you start small, but you get to everybody in your class by the end of the year.
I love that.
Which I think is huge. And then that student, can spread some positivity, because that their well-being is going up by that special attention, and they're excited to share as well. And then your parents are excited to be around you too. So then they talked about some statistics, and he was kind of like, he was hilarious. He was like, everything above this point was made up, and then he was like, here's the real statistics, you know. But those stories do matter. But it just kind of talks about loving who you serve more than what you serve or do. And so 70% of employees will change jobs simply because they don't feel their work is appreciated. That's a huge number, I
Whoa,
think.
that is a huge number.
um,
I feel like there are definitely some, I could see that for sure.
yeah,
Like I would rather feel valued somewhere than make more money and be miserable every day, right?
yeah, and that's what they were saying is that all of this research was talking about how people don't care about money as much as they do about appreciation. And I think sometimes we get in this rut of I'm doing all this work, but nobody's saying anything. And I think too, when I think back, there's times where I think people are amazing, but I don't say it. And it's like, why don't you go out of your way and just tell them, thank you for doing this extra work. Thank you for putting in this extra time on this activity because my students were engaged and I appreciate you sharing that resource. So think about those around you. And I want you to right now, like send them a text message because that is as simple as it can be for some people as you respond to them and you just say, thank you for doing that. And I don't think it has to start with our bosses. I think it starts with us, which is hard because I get it. I know you want to be recognized by higher levels, which we'll get to those statistics in a minute. But again, I think it's just simply just sending someone a message. Hey, yesterday you did this for me, and I really just appreciated you taking the time to do that. And not just like a blank thank you. Like you got to be very detailed in your thank you about what they did and how that made you feel. I think goes longer than just thanks for everything.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the same. It's called labeled praise. You know, it's what we do for kids, right? We don't say great job. Like when we're trying to change behavior, we say great job staying in your seat if staying in their seat is what we wanted them to do. So that is very similar to that labeled praise that we use for our kids for positive reinforcement. So when you're talking about loving your fans or loving your organization and loving your students in all of those terms, it's using that labeled praise, which is a behavior analytic practice of positive reinforcement, just stated in a fluffy and nice way. So it's a proven strategy to help support change in behavior, or also then that feeling of appreciation.
Yeah, and so then the next statistic was only 35% of employees say that they've been recognized recently at work. So only 35% of people feel like they have been even recognized for what they do, which is below half, which is really sad, right? Because you've got all these educators, when I'm thinking in education, that are going over and above for their students. But only 35% of people feel like they've been recognized by their principal, by another colleague, by a parent. So again, that's why I think we need to reach out a lot more. And then the last statistics was 75% of employees say that the most meaningful and memorable recognition comes from their direct leader or a high level executive. Okay, so that is where the principals need to step up. That is where if you're a district leader, you need to step up because that is where people feel the most seen and heard, which is crazy, right? Like 75%, like a colleague hearing that you're appreciated is great and everything. But when you're able to hear that from your direct leader or a high level executive, it means a lot more.
That is, all these numbers are surprising but not surprising at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like all of these things we probably could have said, yeah, that really makes sense, but yet the numbers never seem to not surprise me, because that 70% number and the 75% number, like it's so high, but yet it makes so much sense at the same time.
Yeah, and I think too, when I am kind of like, if someone went over and above for me, I try to put on their direct leader sometimes. Like we did a pop and go activity, and I put on their principal because I wanted them to know that this person went out of their comfort zone to share a resource with other colleagues, and other colleagues found that resource valuable. And I think sometimes as principals or leaders, there's so much going on. And I think sometimes like as a leader, your love tank gets a little low as well. And so just remembering that 75% of employees think that that is most meaningful and memorable recognition, that means a lot. So how can you maybe pick a secret teacher or secret educator or whatever every day or every week and treat that person a little bit different? Or just tell them, hey, thank you so much for going over and above for our students. And so then they go in and they tell this story about Bob. And Bob was about to retire. Okay. So I want you to think, you've worked all your life, right, at this job. And Bob was away and he had some tears coming out of his eyes. And he had 2 weeks left of work. Okay. So he was about to retire, 2 weeks left. And they made a, like an appreciation kind of day for Bob his last 2 weeks. Bob didn't realize how appreciated he was until those last 2 weeks. And I don't want anybody to think that right before you retire that you've done all of these great things. Like we should be telling people throughout the career, we should be celebrating, we should be supporting them. But he didn't feel that appreciation until he was about to retire. And I think that would be very frustrating as an individual.
I have to like tell you right now, this is a conversation that I had with my mom this week. My aunt had passed away, and she passed away last weekend, and with all of my cancer stuff happening, I wasn't able to attend the funeral because of doctor's appointments and different responsibilities I had at home. So I was feeling really guilty about it. And at the same point, like it goes along with what you're saying, is that she passed away, and I'm going to get emotional and I'm going to try not to cry right now in this moment. She passed away, and I never told her all of those things of how much I appreciated all of the things that she did for me when I was younger, because there was a lot of things that she did when I was experiencing trauma in my life from my dad that helped me stay away from. I would have experienced a lot more trauma if it wasn't for her than I already had to experience as a young kid. And I never told her that. Like she may have known, but I never told her as an adult all of those things that I appreciated that she did for me. And now I don't have the chance to tell her. So that's kind of like the bigger version of not telling somebody how much you appreciate them, but taking that to the smaller scale. I can totally relate what you're saying because of my own personal experience right now. So making sure that we don't get to that moment when somebody is leaving because they don't feel appreciated, not just for retirement, but because of just they're going to another job because they didn't feel appreciated. Going back to that 70% of people change jobs because they don't feel their work is appreciated. You know, I have a friend that left and went to another district, and I feel like, you know, we told her in the end, we created a video for her and everybody shared how much they appreciated her, but we didn't share enough why she was here, how much she was appreciated. So I can completely resonate with all of that through my personal experience this past week, with my aunt passing away. And, then now that you're saying that about the retirement, going back to a couple years ago, when one of my friends left the district. So
yeah. And
I'm
it's
feeling that one deep
crazy.
in the soul right now.
I know. It is like eye-opening. But again, we've got to show our appreciation to people. Because it does matter, and it does matter what you say. And I know it can be like awkward or feel awkward, but really it does go a long way with certain people. So what they also do, if you're looking to apply for the Savannah Bananas and join this great team, right, is they make you do a cover video that shows them your personality. They also do a future resume, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was not what you currently have accomplished in your life, but what do you want to accomplish in 5 years? So again, I thought that take was a little bit different, very future focused rather than like, what have you done? And then they do a questionnaire, and all of our staff, I've seen sunshine committees do these. I've seen students take these tests, and they ask their employees this like survey, what's on your bucket list? Who is your hero? Favorite candy bar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? We've got all these surveys, we have it all, but we never use it. We never like look up to see like, what is somebody's favorite candy bar? And what they do at Savannah Banana is on this questionnaire, they took this person to Ireland and her hero was her dad. And so they planned this whole trip for this person to go to Ireland and to go with her dad. Now that's huge, right? But again, they were focused on one person. This person did not have to meet any sales target dates or anything like that. This person just had to be them. And so I think that's just a reminder to pull out those questionnaires and see how your students responded on them. And what's one thing that you're able to do this week that might get them their favorite candy bar or might relate something in a lesson to their favorite movie, or what can you do with that questionnaire to really get that person to listen and kind of take heart that you do care. Which then brings us to the Enneagram. So the Enneagram is a personality test, and they use this to really know different people on their team's motivation and where that person goes for their strengths and what stresses they have. And I'm a huge personality test type of person, but I think this is a great idea to, again, if they don't take the test, at least get to know different personality tests. So that way you are able to know your staff and how they respond to strengths and stresses in their life. So again, take that Enneagram test and get to know those different personality tests. There's so many different ones. There's the Enneagram, the fruit one that we just rolled out, True Colors. There's so many, but again, that just really helps when you get to know what is going on in someone's life.
So many different things that we can do. We have the mystery students, we have the Enneagram, the questionnaire, all of those things can contribute to that whole loving ourselves, loving our students, and loving our organization, because at the end of the day, it goes back to those building relationships and maintaining relationships. So getting to know their personalities and know what they want to invest their time in the future can help support showing your love for them. So this week, your call to action is show somebody a little bit of extra love, whether it's your organization, a student, or yourself. But let's show the love this week. Like, subscribe, or share our episode. And until next time, control the chaos.
Thanks for listening to Control the Chaos EDU. Check out the description for show notes.
We look forward to connecting with you on social media. Subscribe to the weekly podcast so you never miss an episode. Control the chaos. Until next time.